The dropship shook as it entered the atmosphere of Krager, a wild and dangerous planet. Thick clouds rushed past the windows, glowing red from the burning heat outside. Inside the metallic cabin, Lyra sat alone, breathing slowly, trying not to show fear. She was only 17, a new recruit, a trainee among hundreds, but today she was not with the others. Today she had been chosen for a special survival test, or at least that's what the instructors called it. The truth was different. The truth was cruel. The door of the dropship opened with a loud hiss. A blast of cold wind struck her face. The sky outside was dark, filled with storm clouds that flashed with purple lightning. The world below looked like a nightmare: twisted forests, sharp mountains, smoke rising from distant volcanic cracks. No city, no shelter, no help. A tall instructor stood at the door. His expression was empty, almost bored. "Out," he ordered. Lyra stepped forward, but she expected a bag of tools, maybe even a small emergency kit, food, fire starter, rope, something. Instead, the instructor tossed her one thing. A single object that fell at her feet with a dull clink. A knife, old, rusty, dull. The blade could barely cut a thin leaf, let alone wood or rope. She stared at it in disbelief. "That's all?" she asked quietly. "That is more than enough," the instructor replied with a cold smile. "Survive 3 days. A pickup ship will come if you are alive." The dropship door slammed shut behind him. The engines roared, and before Lyra could say another word, the ship lifted off, rising into the storm-filled sky until it disappeared behind the clouds. The sound faded. The silence grew heavy. She was alone. Absolutely, completely alone. The ground beneath her boots was damp. Strange white smoke came from the soil whenever she stepped on it. The air smelled like metal and strange flowers. Every sound in the forest felt sharp, like something was watching her. Lyra closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "So this is Krager," she whispered. "Krager, one of the deadliest planets in the system. A world where the nights were freezing, the days too hot, and the creatures hungry for anything that moved. Most survival tests use safe planets, but not this one. Why her? Why just her?" For a moment she felt anger, a burn in her chest. She was a good student, a strong trainee. She worked harder than most recruits. She followed every rule, so why had they abandoned her here with nothing? The knife felt useless in her hand. The blade wasn't sharp enough to cut her own reflection, and the handle was cracked, held together by old cloth. The wind howled again, darkness thickened. Night was coming. On Krager, night meant death. Lyra quickly forced herself to move. Standing still meant freezing. Standing still meant letting fear grow. She walked into the forest, pushing aside thick vines. The tall trees around her had glowing blue veins, pulsing like they were alive. Strange insects crawled on branches, each with tiny lights on their wings. Every new sound made her tense, a distant roar, leaves shaking, something big moving in the shadows. She needed fire. Fire meant warmth. Fire meant protection. But how? She had no lighter, no flint, no dry wood. "Think, Lyra, think," she whispered. She tried cutting a branch with the knife. The blade slipped and did nothing. It was too dull. She hit 2 rocks together, hoping for sparks. Nothing. Fear started crawling up her spine. Krager's night would drop the temperature to freezing in minutes. Without fire, she wouldn't even reach midnight. The forest floor hissed softly as she stepped on it again. This time she knelt down and touched the smoking soil. It wasn't real smoke at all, more like tiny bursts of gas escaping the ground. Every time she pressed her hand deeper, more white smoke rose. That gave her an idea, a dangerous idea. She looked around. There were large leaves everywhere, thick and wet. There were strange hollow roots under trees full of sticky sap, and there were round stones scattered on the ground, all useless unless she combined them. Lyra grabbed 2 stones and started digging. The knife helped a little, more like a shovel than a blade. She dug through the loose soil, creating a small pit about the size of a bowl. White gas rose from the bottom like fog. She covered the inside with leaves, then found some dry pieces of bark beneath a fallen log. She placed them over the leaves. Now she needed ignition. Something, anything. Her eyes caught a small flying insect resting on a blue-veined tree trunk. It was glowing softly like a tiny light bulb. She remembered reading something in training. Some Krager insects released a brief flash of heat when threatened. It was risky, but she was out of choices. She trapped the insect between 2 leaves and placed it in the pit. Then she raised the dull knife and hesitated. "One chance," she whispered. She brought the knife down. The insect reacted instantly. A bright flash burst from inside the leaves. The gas in the pit caught fire. Whoom! A hot wave hit her face. A small but stable fire burned in the pit, giving off thick, warm smoke. She did it. She created fire. Her heart pounded, not with fear but with pride. She sat near the fire and finally felt a little warmth spreading through her fingers. She fed the pit more bark and dry leaves. The fire thickened, glowing orange and blue. For a moment she allowed herself a small smile, but then a deep growl echoed from the forest. Her smile faded instantly. Something large was moving through the trees, heavy footsteps against the ground. The firelight made long shadows stretch across the forest floor. Lyra grabbed the knife. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes stayed sharp. The creature got closer. She could hear it sniffing the air. The smoke pit gave off a strange scent, perhaps one the predator didn't like, because after a moment the heavy footsteps began to move away. Lyra exhaled. "Thank you," she whispered to the fire. She added more wood, making the smoke thicker. Sleep was dangerous, but she was too tired to stay awake. She lay close to the fire, curling into a ball. The smoke protected her. The heat kept her alive. The night passed slowly. Every hour a new sound woke her, something growling, something walking, something flying overhead, but none came close. When the first morning light touched her face, she opened her eyes. She was cold, hungry, sore, but she was alive. She looked around and saw the forest in daylight, beautiful but terrifying. Strange birds with long feathers, a river in the distance. Blue mist floating above the ground. She stood, picked up the knife, and stared at the fire pit. "This saved me," she whispered. "I can build more." Now she had a plan. She started collecting more soil gas pockets. She dug small holes to store them safely. She built a second pit for cooking. She boiled roots using hot stones. She filtered water. She even set small noise traps using rocks and vines to warn her of predators. Little by little, Lyra turned a deadly forest into her territory. She had arrived with nothing. They gave her a dull knife. They expected her to break, to cry, to fail. But instead, Lyra sharpened her mind. Lyra used every sound, every plant, every stone. Lyra turned survival into strategy. As the second night approached, she sat between her two smoke pits, both burning softly. She looked at the sky. The stars were cold and silent. "I will survive," she whispered. "Not because of the knife, but because I refuse to die." Her legend was only beginning. The second night on Krager arrived faster than Lyra expected. The sun disappeared behind sharp mountains, leaving the sky dark purple. A cold wind cut through the trees, carrying the scent of storms. The strange glowing veins in the trees grew brighter, making the forest look alive, like it was breathing. Lyra checked her two smoke pits again. Both were burning steadily, glowing like two warm stars in the darkness. The thick white smoke drifted into the air, forming a shield around her small camp. She wasn't safe, but she was safer than yesterday. Still, the night felt different, more dangerous. She felt it, a strange heaviness in the air, like the planet itself was watching her. Lyra sharpened her dull knife against a smooth stone. It didn't make the blade sharp, but at least it cleaned the dirt. The firelight reflected off her tired face. Her muscles ached from digging and gathering. Her throat was dry. Her stomach rumbled. She needed food, real food, not boiled roots that tasted like bitter soil. She grabbed the knife and stood up. "Just a quick look," she whispered to herself. "Stay close, return fast." She moved through the trees, stepping lightly to avoid attracting attention. The glowing insects floated around her like tiny lanterns. The wind hummed through tall grass, and the ground made its usual hissing sound whenever she stepped on soft patches of soil gas. Something cracked behind her. A branch, a creature, or the wind. She forced herself to remain calm. "You're stronger than fear," she whispered. She moved deeper into the forest until she reached a small clearing. There she saw something unusual, a group of round, stone-like mounds, each covered with tiny holes. She knelt down and listened. Inside the holes, something was moving, soft scratching, slow breathing, a nest of some kind. She saw claw marks around the mounds, fresh ones. "Something lives here," she muttered. "Something that hides." Before she could step closer, a soft chirping sound echoed from the trees. Lyra froze. The sound grew louder, multiple chirps, a strange rhythm. She turned her head slowly and saw them. Small creatures, no bigger than cats, were crawling down the branches. Their bodies were covered in blue fur, and their eyes glowed white. Their faces looked innocent, almost cute, but their teeth were long, sharp, meant for tearing. They stared at her, not afraid, not curious, hungry. Lyra stepped back. One of the creatures hissed. This was bad. They were pack hunters, fast, clever, deadly. She had to escape. She turned to run, but behind her two more creatures jumped onto rocks, blocking her path. They had surrounded her. Lyra breathed slowly, forcing her heartbeat to calm. Held the knife with both hands. "You're not eating me," she whispered. The creatures crawled closer, chirping louder. Lyra knew she needed a distraction, something to confuse them or scare them. Then she looked down. Her foot was pressing on a patch of soft soil, a gas pocket. She had an idea. She crouched quickly and dug her fingers into the ground, scooping up soil gas in her hands. The creatures paused, watching her closely. With one fast motion, she threw the soil toward them. The gas burst into white smoke when it touched the air. The creatures hissed in shock, backing away for a moment. That was her chance. Lyra ran. Branches slapped her arms. Roots pulled at her feet. She could hear the creatures racing behind her, their claws scratching the earth. She sprinted toward her camp, toward the smoke pits that protected her. Her lungs screamed. Her legs burned, but she didn't stop. Her camp was close. She could see the glow of the fires. A creature jumped at her from the right. She ducked. It flew past her and crashed into a tree. Another creature leaped from a branch above. She rolled aside, dirt filling her hair. She reached the first smoke pit, panting hard. The creatures stopped at the edge of the smoke. They growled, angry and frustrated. They did not cross the smoke boundary. The gas in the soil, the smell of the burning pits, they hated it. After several minutes, the creatures finally backed into the trees, disappearing into the darkness. Lyra collapsed to her knees, breathing heavily. That was close, too close, she whispered, but she had survived. Again, she warmed herself by the fire and drank some water. Her body trembled from fear and exhaustion, but her mind was calm. She had learned something important. Smoke was her strongest weapon. If it kept predators away, maybe she could use it in smarter ways. She studied the pits carefully. Fire mixed with the gas mixed with the soil, the smoke mixed with the air. She wondered, what if I shape the smoke? What if I make it stronger or thicker? She dug 2 new pits, smaller ones. She filled them with extra gas pockets, layered leaves differently, and even created a funnel shape using stones. When she lit the new pits with another glowing insect, the smoke came out differently, thicker, darker, stronger. It spread faster, climbed higher, covered more ground. Lyra smiled. This is good, she whispered. Very good. For the first time, she felt like she had control over this deadly world. Still, she needed food. She stayed awake through most of the night, trying to understand the forest sounds. She began to map out which sounds belonged to predators, which to harmless creatures, and which to weather changes. By morning, her body felt lighter. Her fear had turned into focus. She set simple traps using vines and stones, hoping to catch small animals. She built a 3rd cooking pit using clay she found in a shallow stream. She even used the dull knife to carve a crude cup from a thick root. Every small success made her stronger. While searching near the stream, she found a strange plant with bright red leaves. When she tore one leaf off, thick liquid dripped out. It smelled sweet. She tasted a tiny drop. It was sugary, almost like fruit syrup. Food, she whispered, smiling. She gathered several leaves and carried them back to camp. After boiling them in hot water, she drank the sweet liquid. Energy rushed back into her tired body. This planet tries to kill me, she said softly, but it also gives me gifts. As she cleaned the pit area, another sound echoed through the forest, not an animal this time, not the wind, a deep thump, then another and another. Something large was walking toward her camp. Lyra stood still. The trees shook. Birds flew away. The ground vibrated. Whatever it was bigger than anything she had seen. She grabbed her knife and crouched behind a fallen log, eyes searching the forest. Minutes passed. Then from behind the trees, a massive shadow appeared. A creature stepped into view, tall as a building, with thick armor-like skin and long tusks. Its eyes glowed red. Each step it took made the ground tremble. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. This creature wasn't just dangerous. It was unstoppable. It sniffed the air, turned its head, and looked directly at her camp, her fire pits, her smoke, her scent. Lyra's heart slammed inside her chest. She whispered to herself, don't move, don't breathe, don't exist. The creature lowered its huge head, sniffing the smoke. It grunted, confused. It stepped closer, shaking the trees with its weight. Lyra pressed her back against the ground, praying the smoke would repel this monster too. But unlike the smaller creatures, this one wasn't afraid. It didn't hate the smoke. It was curious, very curious. It stepped over her first pit, lifting one giant foot. Lyra's eyes widened. If it stepped in the fire, it would explode the gas pockets and her whole camp would go up in flames. She had to act. But how? Suddenly, the creature sneezed, a massive explosive sneeze that shook leaves off nearby trees. The smoke had finally irritated it. The creature shook its head, huffed loudly, and backed away. It stomped off into the forest, leaving broken branches in its path. Lyra exhaled so hard she almost collapsed. That was too much, she whispered. When the forest finally grew quiet again, she fixed her fire pits and strengthened the walls around them. She realized something important. Small predators feared smoke. Large predators hated the smell, but some creatures might be immune. She needed more defenses. She gathered stones, built a partial wall, and added more gas pockets around the area. She made noise traps with hanging vines and shells from the river. As she worked, she whispered, "This is my home now. I protect it. I survive. I win." The sun climbed higher. The wind grew warm, and somewhere deep in the forest, eyes watched her work. Not animals, not predators, something else, something intelligent, and it was walking toward her. Morning light filtered through the glowing trees, spreading soft silver across the forest floor. Lyra stood near her smoke pits, rubbing her tired eyes. She had barely slept. The memory of the giant creature's footsteps still echoed in her mind, but something else bothered her even more. When she woke before sunrise, she found something beside her fire pit, something that should not be there. A single stone, smooth, perfectly round, placed carefully, not dropped. Someone had visited her camp, not a creature, not a monster, something intelligent. Lyra knelt down, touching the stone. It was warm, almost like it had been held in a hand just moments before. "Who did this?" she whispered. Her traps were untouched. Nothing was broken, nothing was stolen. Whoever came had watched her and left this strange object. A message, a warning, a gift. Lyra scanned the forest. Wind blew gently between the trees, leaves shimmered as sunlight touched them. But she saw no movement, no shadow, no sign of life. Still, she felt eyes watching her, stepped away from the stone and grabbed her knife. "I'm not alone," she murmured. "Someone is out there." Her mind raced. She had read about such things, silent tribes living on wild planets, observing outsiders, never showing themselves. Some were friendly, others were deadly. She needed more information. Lyra picked up the stone and slipped it into her pocket. "Fine," she whispered. "If someone is watching, I'll watch back." She moved into the forest, keeping low, keeping quiet. She followed the path she thought her silent visitor might have taken. Broken leaves, slight footprints, a bit of crushed grass, small clues but enough for her sharp eyes. The forest sounds changed as she walked deeper. The usual bird calls stopped. Even the glowing insects avoided this area. Ahead she noticed something strange, trees arranged almost like a circle. Too perfect, too even, someone had shaped them. She stepped quietly to the center and froze. There were carvings on the trees, symbols burned into the bark. Spirals, lines, shapes she couldn't understand, but they were fresh. Someone had made them recently. She touched one of the symbols. The bark was still warm, then she heard it. A gentle clicking sound, soft, steady, like something tapping wood. Lyra spun around, knife raised. At first she saw nothing. Then between two trees a figure moved. Her breath caught in her throat. It was a creature, but not an animal. A humanoid figure, tall and thin, with dark green skin and long fingers. Its eyes were bright yellow, glowing softly like lanterns. Its hair looked like thin vines flowing down its back. It stood perfectly still, watching her. Lyra's heart raced, fear and curiosity mixed in her chest. The creature didn't attack, didn't growl, didn't move closer. It simply stared. Lyra took a slow breath and lowered her knife slightly. "I don't want to fight," she said softly. The creature tilted its head but didn't respond. Instead, it reached for something behind a tree. For a moment, Lyra tensed, thinking it was grabbing a weapon, but it wasn't. It pulled out a small woven basket and placed it gently on the ground in front of her. Then, without a sound, it turned and disappeared into the forest like a shadow melting into light. Lyra waited several minutes, making sure it was gone. Then she approached the basket carefully. Inside, she found 3 soft fruits, a piece of dried plant that smelled sweet, a handful of glowing blue seeds, a carved wooden charm shaped like a leaf food. Medicine, a charm for protection. This wasn't a threat. This was a gift. Lyra sat down slowly, overwhelmed. "They're watching me, helping me, but why?" She tasted one of the fruits. It was soft and juicy, better than anything she'd eaten since arriving. She ate more, feeling energy return to her body. But even as she ate, she kept scanning the trees, and then she noticed something that made her blood turn cold. A boot print, heavy, deep, human, not like the humanoid creature she saw, not like any alien animal. A soldier's boot print, and beside it a second print, smaller, barefoot. Someone human was here, not from her training group, someone else entirely. Questions hit her mind like stones. Who were they? Why were they here? Did they see the creature? Were they hunting her? Were they sent by the instructors? She followed the prints carefully, moving in the opposite direction of the creature's territory. After walking for several minutes, she heard something unusual, metal footsteps. The kind boots make on hard ground. She crouched behind a large rock. 2 humans stood in a clearing. They wore black armor with no symbols or badges. Not military, not instructors. Something secret. They had rifles. Heavy ones. One of them spoke. Voice cold and angry. "She's nearby. The scanner shows her within 1 kilometer. The other man kicked a bush. "Why are we wasting time on one girl?" he complained. "Command wants proof she can be pushed to the limit, and if she dies, same result." Lyra's stomach twisted. These men weren't here to help. They were here to test her or kill her. But she heard something else, something chilling. The first man continued, "Forget the girl. A real mission is to capture one of the forest walkers. Those tall ones with glowing eyes." Lyra froze. They were hunting the humanoid creatures, and she had just accepted a gift from one. She backed away slowly, trying not to make a sound, but her foot snapped a small branch. Both men jerked their heads in her direction. "Did you hear that?" one asked. Lyra's heart hammered in her chest. She ducked lower. "Go check," the other man ordered. Bootsteps moved closer. Leaves rustled. Grass crunched. Lyra crawled backward quietly, using roots and shadows to stay hidden. She needed to get away fast. Suddenly, she felt a hand grab her wrist. She gasped, but the hand was gentle, not violent. She looked up. It was the humanoid creature from earlier. Its yellow eyes stared into hers with calm understanding. It placed one finger to its lips. Silence. Lyra nodded. The creature guided her silently through the forest, moving like smoke, avoiding every dry leaf and noisy branch. Behind them, she heard the voices of the hunters searching, cursing, stepping closer. The creature led her into a hollow tree large enough for both to hide. The interior was warm and smelled like herbs. The hunter's footsteps got closer, closer, closer. Lyra held her breath. The creature closed its eyes, steady and calm. The humans passed by, still searching, still angry but moving away. After several minutes, silence returned. The creature opened its eyes and looked at Lyra again. It raised its hand and placed it gently on her chest over her heart. A soft glow appeared around its fingers. Then it whispered a single word in a strange, melodic language, friend. Lyra's eyes widened. The creature could speak, and it understood what she represented. She whispered back, voice trembling, I won't let them hurt you. The creature tilted its head, studying her face. Then it touched the wooden charm from the basket and pointed deeper into the forest, a direction, a path, a message it wanted her to follow. Lyra nodded slowly. She came out of the hollow tree, gripping her knife tightly. The creature melted back into the shadows, watching her silently. She whispered into the wind, I will survive, not just for me, but for them too. Ahead lay danger, hunters, monsters, mystery. But Lyra had allies now, hidden ones, silent ones. The forest felt different after the encounter with the humanoid creature. Different in a quiet, heavy way, like the air itself knew trouble was coming. Lyra walked slowly through the glowing trees, holding the wooden charm the creature had given her. It was warm in her hand, almost alive. The charm seemed to guide her, leading her deeper into the forest than she had ever gone. Behind her, the forest was no longer safe. Human hunters were searching. Their heavy boots and sharp voices echoed through the trees. They weren't trainees. They weren't instructors. They had another mission, capture the forest walkers, capture her new ally. Lyra kept moving. She didn't know where the creature wanted her to go, but she trusted it. It had saved her life. The forest grew thicker. Vines dangled from high branches. Strange blue flowers glowed softly along the path. The air grew warm and humid, and every now and then, Lyra heard clicking sounds like distant talking. Not human talking, forest walker talking. She followed the charm's pull until she reached a wide clearing, but this wasn't like the others. The ground was covered with soft moss that shimmered silver under the sunlight. Tall stone pillars rose from the earth, each carved with ancient symbols like the ones she saw earlier. The place felt sacred, alive, important. Before she could explore, a figure stepped out from behind a pillar. Tall, green-skinned, yellow eyes glowing softly, the creature from before. But this time it wasn't alone. 3 more forest walkers emerged from the shadows, surrounding her in a silent circle. Lyra tensed, gripping her dull knife. The first creature, the one who gave her the basket, lifted a hand. Peace. Lyra lowered her knife. The creatures approached slowly, studying her with curious eyes. One of them touched her hair, examining the color. Another sniffed her wrist. The last one tapped the ground twice with a long finger. Then the first creature stepped closer, placing its hand on the wooden charm. Friend, safe, it whispered in broken human language. Lyra's eyes widened. You can speak. The creature nodded slowly, tapping its forehead. Learned from sky voices. Sky voices, humans, recording, something left behind long ago. Lyra swallowed, overwhelmed. I didn't mean to enter your place, she said softly. I was running from the hunters. The creatures exchanged glances, their expressions changed, sharper, more serious. The first creature pointed toward the deeper forest. Hunters bad, hurt tribe, take walkers. Lyra felt a knot tighten in her chest. They're trying to capture you, she said. I heard them, they want to take you away. The creatures made low, anxious sounds. One of them tapped a pillar aggressively, showing frustration. The first creature pointed at Lyra again. Why you tell truth? It asked. Lyra blinked. Because you saved me, she said simply. Because you gave me food and shelter, because you called me friend. The forest walkers stared at her for a long moment. Their glowing eyes softened. The first creature placed both hands on her shoulders gently. Walk with us, it said. See tribe, safe. Lyra nodded. The creatures led her deeper into the forest. The air grew warm, filled with sweet smells and sparkling lights. Soon they reached a hidden valley surrounded by tall cliffs. Waterfalls poured down into a crystal lake. The trees here had golden leaves, and hundreds of forest walkers moved gracefully among them. The valley was beautiful, peaceful, alive. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. This was their home, their secret sanctuary. Young forest walkers played near the water, chasing glowing insects. Elders sat near roots, carving symbols into stone tablets. Others sang in soft, melodic voices that blended with the wind. The first creature introduced her with a single word, friend. Dozens of yellow eyes turned toward her, not with fear, but with curiosity. Lyra felt something warm bloom in her chest. She had never been welcomed like this. Even in her trainee group, she always felt alone, ignored, unimportant. But here, they accepted her instantly. A tall elder approached. His skin was darker, almost teal, and he wore a necklace of wooden charms. He studied Lyra carefully, then nodded slowly. The first creature spoke to him in their clicking language. The elder listened, then placed a hand on Lyra's forehead gently. He spoke a new word, chosen. Lyra blinked. Chosen for what? The elder touched the sky above them where the clouds swirled slowly. Storms coming, many dangers, hunters, others need friend. Lyra understood they weren't just helping her. They needed her help too. But before she could respond, a loud explosion echoed through the cliffs. Boom! Birds scattered, children screamed. The forest walkers looked toward the sound in fear. Lyra's blood turned cold. The hunters had found the valley. The first creature hissed, grabbing Lyra's hand and pulling her behind a large tree. From the cliff opening, 3 humans marched in, armored, armed, and confident. They held rifles with bright blue lights at the tips. The leader, a tall man with a scar across his face, stepped forward. "There," he said, pointing. "The tribe command will reward us well." Lyra clenched her fists. They weren't just capturing one creature. They wanted the whole tribe. The hunters stepped closer, raising their weapons. The elder walker stepped forward, unafraid, lifting his hands peacefully. He spoke softly, trying to communicate. The leader laughed. "Perfect. It understands surrender." He raised his rifle. Lyra's body moved before her brain did. She stepped out from behind the tree. "Stop!" she shouted. The hunters froze, their eyes widened. "You," the scarred man said. "Girl, you should be dead by now." Lyra stood tall, knife at her side. "You're not taking them," she said firmly. The man smirked. "Kid, you can't stop us with a toy knife." Lyra glanced at the first forest walker. It nodded, then she took a deep breath. "You're right," she said. The hunter grinned wider. "Good. Now but the forest can," Lyra finished. She stomped on the ground, triggering one of her hidden gas pockets. Thick white smoke exploded upward, blinding the hunters. They coughed, stumbling back. The elder walker raised his arms and let out a loud clicking call. The forest responded. Vines shot from trees. Stones rolled down from cliffs. The glowing insects formed a cloud, confusing the hunters. Forest walkers, quick and silent, moved through the smoke like shadows. Lyra grabbed a branch and swung it at one hunter, knocking his rifle away. The first creature leaped from a tree and pushed another hunter into the lake. The third hunter fired blindly, hitting nothing but smoke. The forest fought beside them. Minutes passed in chaotic flashes, shouts, clicking sounds, bright lights, crashing water. Finally, the smoke cleared. The hunters were lying on the ground, tied with vines, unconscious. Their weapons floated in the lake. The valley was safe. For now. Lyra collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. The first creature rushed to her side, supporting her gently. The elder touched her shoulder. "You protect tribe," he said. "Tribe protect you." Lyra looked at the peaceful valley, at the forest walkers' grateful faces. She had found something she never expected on this deadly planet, a family. But deep inside, she knew the danger was not over. If these hunters were here, others would come. Stronger, better armed, and she would have to face them. Not alone this time, but with her tribe beside her. The forest walkers had defeated the first group of hunters, but everyone knew the truth. More would come. Stronger men, heavier weapons, bigger machines. Lyra stood near the crystal lake, her reflection wavering in the water. She felt the weight of fear pressing on her chest. The tribe gathered around her, young ones holding tightly to their parents, elders whispering worried songs. She touched the wooden charm around her neck. The forest walkers had chosen her. Now she had to choose them. The first creature, the one who saved her, stepped beside her quietly. "Hunters return," it said softly. "Many strong." Lyra nodded. "I know." The creature pointed at her smoke pit symbol carved in the charm. "Smoke, your power." Lyra blinked. "My power?" The elder walked toward her, holding a long staff decorated with glowing leaves. He tapped the ground twice. "Sky Child," he said, "you bring new ideas. New ways. Smoke protect, smoke fight." Lyra felt a spark of courage inside her. Smoke had protected her since the first night. Smoke kept the small creatures away. Smoke confused the hunters. Smoke covered the valley. What if she used smoke in a bigger way, a smarter way? She looked around the valley, soil filled with gas pockets, fallen trees perfect for burning clay from the lake, for building rocks, vines. Roots everywhere, dozens of forest walkers ready to help. A plan formed in her mind, a plan crazy enough to work. She stood up straight. "Okay," she said, "if the hunters return, we'll make the whole valley fight back." The forest walkers leaned in, curious. Lyra grabbed a stick and began drawing lines in the dirt. "We build more smoke pits," she said. "Not small ones, big ones, many of them. They will protect the valley and trap anyone who enters." The first creature nodded. "Trap with smoke." "Not just smoke," Lyra added. "With fire, heat, confusion, we control the ground." The elder tapped the dirt softly. "Teach tribe," he said. Lyra taught them everything she knew: how to dig the pits, how to layer leaves, bark, and clay, how to collect soil gas safely, how to use glowing insects to ignite the pits, how to hide the pits with moss and stones. The forest walkers learned fast. They moved quickly, digging and shaping pits with their long fingers. Some built stone funnels. Others carved clay pipes to direct smoke in specific directions. Soon the valley became a maze of hidden traps, silent, deadly, waiting, but they needed more. "We need walls," Lyra said. The creatures gathered thick vines, weaving them into nets. They tied them between trees to form barriers. They reinforced cliffs with stones. They dug trenches that funneled enemies towards smoke pits. By nightfall, the valley looked the same, but under the surface was a weapon. Lyra stood with the elder on a cliff overlooking their home. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Fear, not shame," he said. "Fear, prepare." Lyra nodded, feeling the truth of his words, but she couldn't sleep that night. She knew the hunters were planning. She knew they would come at sunrise. Her heart thumped painfully inside her chest. "I won't let them take this place," she whispered. "Not my family, not my tribe." The wind carried her words into the night. The attack comes morning arrived in a storm of shadows. A loud roar echoed through the cliffs. Birds scattered. The forest shivered. Lyra rushed to the edge of the valley and saw them. At least 12 hunters marched toward the entrance, wearing heavy armor and carrying weapons that glowed with blue energy. Behind them came 2 mechanical beasts, metal walkers with long legs and cannon-like eyes. Lyra's breath caught. "They brought machines," she whispered. The first creature appeared beside her, standing tall despite the danger. "Stand with us," it said. Lyra nodded, gripping her dull knife tightly. The hunters entered the valley. Lyra raised her hand. "Now." The first smoke pit erupted, thick white gas shooting upward. The hunters coughed, shielding their faces. A metal walker stepped forward. Lyra gave the second signal. The ground beneath the walker collapsed. A massive pit swallowed one of its legs, and the machine slammed into the ground with a painful metallic scream. The forest walkers cheered in their clicking voices. The hunters yelled orders, firing energy blasts blindly. Lyra and the tribe moved through the smoke, silent and swift. "Guide the smoke," Lyra shouted. Forest walkers pulled the clay pipes they built. Streams of smoke twisted in controlled currents, forcing hunters into narrow paths directly into traps. Boom! Another gas pocket ignited. The second metal walker stumbled, blinded. One hunter tripped over a vine net and fell into a pit. Another was pushed back by a swarm of glowing insects. This wasn't a battle, this was nature fighting back. The hunters finally saw Lyra through the smoke. "You again?" their leader shouted angrily. "Why help these creatures?" Lyra stepped forward, smoke swirling around her like a cloak. "Because you hurt them," she said. "Because you don't belong here." The leader raised his rifle. Lyra froze. He aimed right at her heart. Before he could fire, the first forest walker leaped from a tree, knocking him down. The rifle flew into the lake. The man roared, punching the creature in the chest. The creature stumbled back, falling. "No," Lyra cried, running toward them. The leader grabbed a small energy blade and lunged at her. Her heart hammered. She couldn't move fast enough. She raised her dull knife, and at that moment the elder walker stepped between them. The energy blade struck his shoulder. He let out a pained cry but stayed standing. The leader growled, "Move, alien." But the elder didn't move. Instead, he stepped forward, towering over the man. His staff glowed with golden energy drawn from the valley itself. With one powerful swing, he struck the ground. A shockwave of light burst outward. The smoke pits ignited at once, releasing a storm of white clouds. The hunters were thrown off their feet. Their weapons fell. Their machines stopped moving. Lyra shielded her eyes. When the smoke finally settled, the hunters were unconscious, defeated, bound by vines. The valley was safe. The aftermath. Lyra rushed to the elder walker, who sat weakly on a stone. "You're hurt," she whispered. The elder smiled gently. "Storm ended, tribe safe." The first creature came closer, placing its hand on Lyra's other shoulder. "You fight like Walker," it said proudly. Lyra laughed softly through tears. "And you fight like a human." The tribe gathered around them, singing soft victory songs. The golden leaves swayed gently as sunlight returned. For the first time, Lyra truly felt like she belonged, not as a survivor but as part of a family. But the elder raised a hand and silence fell. "Sky Child," he said. "Hunters return someday, more danger." Lyra nodded. "I know. You go Sky, speak truth, save tribe." Her heart tightened. He wanted her to leave, to find her people, protect the forest walkers permanently. "But I want to stay," she whispered. The elder touched her heart. "Stay inside, but walk Sky Path, bring peace." The first creature hugged her tightly. "Friend, come back." Lyra closed her eyes. "I will." She stepped to the cliff edge, looking at the dangerous world below and the metal sky above. She wasn't the weak trainee they abandoned. She wasn't the scared girl with a dull knife. She was Lyra, smoke builder, forest ally, protector of a hidden tribe. And she had a new mission: to return to the sky and bring justice. The forest wind carried her final whisper. "I survived like a legend. Now I will fight like one."